Hello guys, today we'll tell you horrifying and creepy Reddit stories. We still haven't reached 1,000 subscribers. Sit back, calm down, and don't forget to subscribe. Let's move on to the video. I wish it was my drunk roommates eating my food. This is my brother's girlfriend's story. She doesn't have a Reddit, but I told her about this subreddit and she wanted to share her story because it's creepy but also to learn from it. I go to school in a big city that is one of the least safe cities in the US. I chose this school for nursing and definitely not the location. I live in a row house, that's what we call it, off campus with 4 other girls. Cheaper and nicer than dorms, or so we thought. I guess you get what you pay for. We're all girls and sophomores in college. As you would guess, we go out, drink, come back, and do things we don't remember. We had just started our rent in August. 3 floors plus a basement that was padlocked by the owners. Understandable. We would definitely have parties down there to avoid immediate cleanup. The house was great. Amazing location to the school and work. I'm a CNA who works odd hours. It was not expensive and in good condition. I had never lived with that many people before. Just one roommate, so before we definitely knew if one of us had misplaced or changed something. I started to notice my snacks were either half gone or completely gone. I was getting annoyed, but a house of this many people is too much work to figure out who ate what. So I ignored it. Slowly, as girls do, we start making comments about someone eating our food, but passive-aggressively. You know, college girls. We all just let it go because who wants a whole house fight? I work until about 11 and the next day queue and get home about 11:30, mostly on weeknights. I started to notice pans left out or snack wrappers around that. It was odd because none of my roommates had done that before, but just thinking, oh, they probably drank a bottle of wine and then went to bed and forgot about all this. Again, my roommates started making comments this time. We started to ask because it was getting annoying. All her food being gone and things being left, I knew it was one of them. But who wants to admit they ate someone else's snacks in college? Snacks are a high commodity. We chalked it up to the girl who only smokes and eats her weight in food. She swore it wasn't her. This went on for about 2 months. It got more obvious that someone was clearly taking everyone's food. Definitely the girl that only smokes. I see her eat her whole snack pantry in a night. I wish it was her. One night at work, I was about to get off, but a situation happened and I didn't end up leaving until 12:30. I took the bus home. I got home and I was about to go. I wanted to go to bed ASAP. I walked in the front door and the stairs are directly in front of you. You can also see down the side into the kitchen. I walked in and saw someone in the kitchen but was way too tired to say hi, thinking it could end in a 30-minute conversation about nothing, so I went straight upstairs. When I got to the 2nd floor, I noticed all my roommates' doors were closed, which always means they're all either in their room for the night or asleep. I had a weird feeling, just something that made it click. They were all asleep, right? I texted our house group chat asking if anyone was in the kitchen. I felt stupid for even asking. 2 responded no, and they said that the other 2 had been asleep. I know it wasn't any of my roommates down there at that moment. I dialed 911, but didn't press call. I crept into my roommate's room across the hall. Thankfully, or maybe not thankfully, she didn't have her door locked. I whisper, telling her I think someone's in the house. She gave me the widest eyes and almost looked like she was going to cry. She didn't suspect anything like I had, but for reference, a very bad area as in there was a shooting in the house 2 doors down only weeks earlier by an intruder. She mouthed to make the call. The whole time we were dead silent. We didn't really hear anything at all. I was starting to think I was seeing things after such a long day at work and was regretting that I had dialed thinking I'm going to look like an idiot when they show up and I was just overtired and dreaming. We explained what's going on and they said they would send someone ASAP, and that actually does mean right away since it's a big and dangerous city. The police showed up and I didn't even want to go downstairs. But the operator confirmed that it was them, so I did. But the whole time I could swear the operator could hear my heart beating. The police come in and look around. I'm thinking, oh God, I look so dumb. They ask if there's any other floors. We tell them technically the basement, but it's padlocked, so really, no. They check the basement just in case. And, well, yeah, they were right. The man had been living in the padlocked basement. The lock had been pulled off and the hinges were kind of just propped against the wall. He never looked at it, though. It really went out back. The guy had taken a comforter of one of my roommates out of the hall closet, but had a mattress from God knows where in his clothes. Well, he was the one moving and eating all of our stuff. He would come in and out in the middle of the night and do it. He started getting more comfortable. I don't know if he was drugged out or forgot to clean his tracks, or if he didn't really care. Me and my roommates had pretty consistent schedules during the week, probably letting him think that any time after about 12 was good to come out. We never slept with our individual doors locked, and that's what freaks me out the most. He had access to any one of us at any moment, and we had no idea. When he was getting arrested, I was the only one to go down and look. I didn't know why I did. I wish I didn't. I took a picture of the process of him being arrested to show my roommates who were too afraid to go down. This is him. So yeah, let's never actually meet, dude. The closet door. 2 months after my brother and his wife bought a new house, they had to go out of town and needed their cats fed. Their house and my office are both a good drive from my apartment, but only a few minutes from each other. My brother said if I wanted, I could just stay over in the guest room rather than driving among the 3 places. So I got the keys and instructions and planned to stay there for 3 nights. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday evening was uneventful until around midnight. I was lying on the living room couch watching Conan with a cat lying on my chest. I started to drift off to sleep. The next thing I knew, I was standing in pitch black darkness. I completely freaked out. I had no idea where I was. I felt around in the dark and felt nothing. Finally, I realized there actually was a faint blue light coming from above. I moved towards it and then understood where I was. I was in the fucking basement. The light was coming through the basement door at the top of the stairs, which leads into the kitchen. Just enough moonlight apparently made it through from a window elsewhere in the kitchen. I bolted up the stairs, turned on the kitchen light, and closed the basement door. I was terrified until I calmed myself down enough to come to the conclusion you probably already came to. I had sleepwalked all the way down the stairs after opening the basement door, which I know was closed. A couple of things are important to the story. First, the basement. The house was very nice. Actually, more than they should have been able to afford. The only exception was the basement. I had only seen the basement once when I first got the tour. It was totally unfinished and was the one major thing they wanted to fix up. All they had down there were boxes and the washer-dryer. I had no reason to want to go down there and had kind of forgotten it even existed. The other point is that sleepwalking is kind of a thing in my family, almost an inside joke. My brother talked in his sleep constantly and would sleepwalk sometimes. It always scared the hell out of me. The idea of people doing things in their sleep just creeps me out to the core. Still does. My brother knew this and would tease me about it, so it was known in my family that I had this phobia. But as far as I know, I had never, ever sleepwalked until that night. The image kept playing in my mind, over and over, of me, asleep, getting up from the couch, walking to the kitchen, opening up the basement door, and shuffling down the stairs in total darkness. Creepy as all hell. Anyway, I saw the TV was still on in the living room playing The Wedding Crashers. I watched the rest of the movie, trying to laugh and think of the sleepwalking as a funny story to tell my brother. When I went upstairs to go to sleep in the guest room, I stayed asleep. That was night 1. The next morning, in the light of day, it didn't seem that scary. I texted my brother about it and joked around. All day, I wasn't bothered one bit. But as I'm walking out of my office to my car, I'm overcome by this sense of dread. All of a sudden, the thought of going to sleep in that house and maybe sleepwalking again is scaring the hell out of me. So I had a plan. I stop at the hardware store and pick up one of those rubber door stopper wedges. At the house, I jam this into the crack under the basement door and kick it until it's as far as it can go. I test it out, trying to open the door, and it won't budge. Perfect. Later, I go upstairs and fall asleep. When I wake up, I swear to God, I think I'm dreaming. I was standing in darkness again, but this time I know exactly where I am. The smell is the same. The concrete floor under my feet is the same. I look around for the light from upstairs, and it takes me longer to find it because it's farther away. Last night, I was only a couple of feet from the stairs. This night, it was maybe 10 feet. I run up and turn on the kitchen lights. I see the rubber wedge on the floor, a couple of feet away, as if it was tossed there. Again, I can't stop picturing myself sleepwalking, out of the bedroom, down the stairs, trying to open the basement door, bending down and yanking out the wedge, and then, again, slowly down into the darkness. I decided I was turning on the basement lights and they were staying on. I opened the door and flipped the switch to the basement stairway. I saw there was a main switch at the bottom of the stairs. To give you a quick sense of the layout, the staircase splits the basement into two parts. To the right is a small area with the washer-dryer, and to the left is the big open area. I walked down and turned on the lights for the whole basement. That's when I noticed something I hadn't when my brother gave me the tour. About 10 to 15 feet away in the big area, there was a door to what looked like a small closet. This door was closed but had no doorknob, just an empty hole, so it looked like it would freely swing open. I realized it was very close to where I had just awoken. Then, a fucking freaky thought came to me. It was as if each night I was heading to the door, getting a little farther each time before I woke up. As soon as that thought popped into my head, I booked it up the stairs again, left the lights on, and closed the door. I went up to the bedroom, but it took me forever to fall asleep. That was night 2. The next morning, Wednesday morning, I woke up late for work. I didn't think about the basement at all because I was scrambling to get ready. At work, though, I was still curious about what was behind the door. So I texted my brother and asked. He replied, "Wait, why were you in the basement?" I realized that when I texted him the day before, I never actually told him where I woke up, so I tell him I woke up in the basement. Actually, twice in a row. After a while, he sends this novel-length text. It was about how the basement is creepy, not to go down there, etc. How they tried putting the litter boxes in the basement and the cats made a mess in the house because they refused to go down there. How he volunteers to do every chore other than the laundry, just so he doesn't have to go down there. He says all this stuff, and it's surprising to me. Because my brother never believed in the paranormal or superstitions, not even when we were kids. I also realize he never answered my question about the door, but I let it go. After work, I get the same feeling of dread as I'm walking to my car. I really don't want to stay there again, and I decide, fuck it, I don't have to. So I go and feed the cats, get my stuff, and drive back to my place. I'm supposed to feed the cats one more time, so I'll stop over in the morning. As I went to sleep at my apartment, I was thinking of all the steps I'd have to take to sleepwalk to the basement again. Find my car parked around the block, drive asleep to my brother's house, etc. But this time, I sleep through the night. That was night 3. Thursday morning. I stop at the house as planned. I'm about to leave when I remember that the basement lights are still on. I don't even hesitate to go down there and turn them off. There was something about being there in the morning that at the time made it seem fine. When I go down again, that door without a doorknob catches my eye, and it doesn't even seem scary anymore. So, what the hell, let's see. I walk over to it, and I distinctly remember not feeling spooked at all. That is, until I reach my hand towards the doorknob hole to pull it open. As soon as I do that, and I mean instantly, I feel this electric feeling like the air before a storm, and I imagine a hand coming through the hole and grabbing mine. It was like 0 to 60. going from no fear to being certain something horrible would happen if I opened the door. It's hard to describe it other than that electric feeling. I booked it up the stairs and out of the house, so a month later I meet my brother for happy hour. A few drinks in, we start joking about me sleepwalking in the creepy basement. I say he never answered me about what was behind the door, and he says I don't want to know, joking at first. But then, as I persist, he gets more serious, insisting that I really don't want to know. Finally, he tells me, and I don't believe him. He's my big brother, and he's only bullshitted me 1,000,000 times in the past. This was his explanation. The previous and first owners of the house had a teen daughter that used the basement as her bedroom. The door was to her closet, where one night she curled up, took some pills, and killed herself. The family was going to remodel the basement, but after tearing it apart, realized they couldn't do it and had to move. That was why only the basement was unfinished, and why my brother was able to afford the place. The seller had to disclose a suicide happened in the residence. He said if I didn't believe him, to look up the market values of the identical houses in his tract. I know how much they paid for their house, and it was way lower. He and his wife considered themselves rational people and figured it was a bargain. But they still didn't want to tell anyone after they moved in. His wife was fine with the basement, but he grew to hate it. He apologized for not saying anything to me before I stayed there, but he never thought I'd have any reason to go down there. Here's what convinced me. I said, okay. The only thing that makes me kind of believe you is that last morning I was there and I went over to the closet door. At this point, I see my brother's face change. I continued. When I went over to it, the air felt like, and at that same instant I say, okay, electricity. And my brother says electric at the same exact time. I saw his face and knew he was telling the truth. I've never stepped foot again in that basement, and I haven't sleepwalked since. Close experience at Stoneman Douglas. I'm sure many people know a shooting took place at Stoneman Douglas High School on Valentine's Day this year. I was a junior at the time, and I've been at Douglas since the beginning of freshman year. Now it's my senior year, and senioritis is really kicking on my butt. Anyway, on to the story from my point of view. It was Valentine's Day, where I could see some people holding Valentine carnations and teddy bears while walking between classes. I really didn't care much about the whole event, but secretly hoped to get something from some friends of mine, which I did. We had a mandatory fire drill in the morning, important to know, like the school board requires us sometimes to do. Time passed, and it was on my third period, which was my study hall class, or personalization as the school says. There, I would do some homework and surf the web on my phone. I suddenly had the urge to go to the bathroom near the end of my class. Sometimes I go pee in third period and sometimes in fourth. Keep this in mind. So then I walked to my fourth period class, which is in the 1300 building, or the science building as we call it. You can see in pictures it's about 10-15 meters away from where the 1200 building, aka freshman building, was. A very, very short walking distance. I go in my physics classroom where we finish a virtual lab experiment. It was near the end of class, and I looked at the clock, pondering if I should go to the bathroom again because I drank a lot of water today. It's kind of a hassle to go to the bathroom in class because every time I go pee in the 1300 building, the bathroom is always locked. So I have to walk over to the freshman building to do my business instead. And even sometimes the first floor bathroom is locked because of drug usage. Douglas is literally called a pot school by others. So I climb up the stairs to go to the second floor. But this time I decided not to go because school was almost already out anyway. The fire alarm rings, red flag number 1, which I thought was super weird because we already had a fire drill in the morning. It was probably culinary class again, so I didn't pay much attention, and walked out the door to my designated area with my classmates like fire procedures had us do. I left my backpack behind and just took my phone with me. Then I heard the sounds. I stopped walking 3 steps away from the door and looked in the direction of the freshman building. Fireworks? Is this some sort of simulation? Who would set up fireworks at this time? Suddenly, I had a very bad feeling wash over me and my heart started to race. and in the back of my mind I thought that maybe they could be gunshots. Yet I was still in denial because Parkland is a very safe community where upper middle class people reside and where crime rates are very low. I was just standing in the doorway wanting some sort of confirmation that, yes, this was happening. My mind went absolutely blank. It was like somebody took control of my body and flipped my flight or flight switch on. I turned away from the direction of the freshman building, went back in my classroom, and bolted toward the fire escape door out in the back. I didn't really care. I just wanted out. Once out the door, I encountered a class who was in their area and also thought it was a fire drill. Suddenly it occurred to me that I just ran out of the classroom when I wasn't supposed to. That was seriously my first thought when I was outside. I started to walk back in the direction of my class to follow the procedure. Because yes, my dumbass thought nothing serious was happening. More gunshots rang out in the air, which I still thought were fireworks. But I decided to stay in place with the group. Usually during fire drills, administrators would drive around in their golf carts to check on the teachers and students. I saw one a couple of meters away from me, and I was about to walk up to him and say that I was lost when he suddenly drove away super fast. Multiple police cars came around the corner with their lights flashing, and a helicopter flew above me. And that's when I knew things were serious. I could still hear gunshots very close by, so I ran somewhere on the edge of the school that had fences and was near the football or baseball field. I don't know on what path I specifically went. All I knew was that I was yeeting out of there. I tried climbing up the fences like other people were doing to escape, but I'm not athletic enough and just slipped down like a loser. Suddenly, a chubby freshman limped up to where me and a small group of people were. "I don't know. Help me, I've been shot," he cried out with tears running down his face. I looked at his leg, and there was a gaping red bullet hole on his ankle with splatters of blood around it. Maybe even a peak of white, which was his bone. My eyes were wide open, mouth practically hanging open. "Bruh, that looks so fake," a person next to me says. He was still crying for help, but we were frozen solid. Suddenly, an adult male came out of nowhere and directed us to run and hide at a middle school nearby. No one was doing anything to save this poor boy. So I marched up to the guy and yelled at him, "A person is shot." He legit did not hear me, so I practically spit in his face again that the boy was shot. Finally, he said, "What? Where?" Still hearing gunshots that were directly behind me, I pointed at the boy and then proceeded to sprint across the football field with my heart pounding out of my chest. Halfway across the field, I called my mom in hysterics, saying that there was a shooting. She didn't understand what was going on and was confused because school wasn't out yet. Finally, she understood and started yelling that I should run away as fast as I can, obviously. From my dad's point of view, her voice was so loud that the neighbors came over and asked what was happening. Eventually, I walked across Walmart Inn to Bank of America where they picked me up. I think the aftermath was the hardest part. When I got home, I was so calm, like nothing ever happened. I only broke down crying when I was called by my other sister who was in another high school when she heard the news. In the afternoon and supper time, I was joking around and laughing like I normally was. Basically, I was in absolute denial. The day after, I was in my shared bathroom with my sister, on Twitter while brushing my teeth. I looked at the names of the victims, saw faces that I knew, and had a breakdown. So many what-ifs came to mind. What if I went to the bathroom during fourth period like I would do sometimes at the end of class? I legit would have been gunned down and not even been typing at this moment. What if the shooter did manage to successfully break the windows and shoot from there? I would be smack dab in his line of sight when I was outside the 1300 building standing around. 2 weeks later, I returned to school to reclaim the nest, as the principal called it. What I didn't know was that one of the victims was in my psychology class, and I had never known she existed until now. I kept looking at the empty desk that was once hers, and once I did, I felt numb inside. My teacher later would put a flower pot on her desk every day in her absence. Then in my statistics class, there was another victim, which meant another empty desk. My stats teacher asked with tears in his eyes for us to reshuffle our seating arrangement because he didn't want to look at the empty desk any longer. Still, to this day, I have nightmares of being involved in shootings and would be scared of loud noises. Basically PTSD. Chinese New Year was absolute hell with firecrackers, and so was 4th of July, where I had a panic attack. Throughout the couple of months his information was coming in, I would learn that my sister used to go to school with the shooter. She described him as lonely and weird. Additionally, my male friend got sent death threats from him and would send him pictures of guns, threatening to shoot him. Yes, he did report him before. But the administration did nothing, and also he later testified in court. Also, I think I know the identity of the boy who got shot in the ankle, but I'm not 100% sure. Apparently, the guy I screamed at was an off-duty police officer who helped wrap the boy up, and the boy gave him a good description of the shooter. That was a massive help. I'm not going to confront him, though, because I don't want to bring up bad memories. Things still aren't normal in Douglas. It never will be until perhaps once the freshmen who were there that day graduate. There's always some sort of tension in the atmosphere, as if something major was going to happen. Lately, a lot of fire alarms have been going off, and every time they do, everyone would become silent. Campsite Stalker. I have always been uncomfortable with the story I'm about to tell you all. Partly because it was so odd and out of the ordinary, but nevertheless, since I started going camping again, I thought it would be interesting to share my own scary camping experience. This happened during the summer of 2012 when I was 15 and still an active member of a local Boy Scouts troop. I went camping, something my troop had done frequently. The camp we chose was for a full weekend. It was a nice forested area with taller grass. It also lacked other campers, and we saw no cars driving in or out throughout the time we spent there. Since we didn't have to worry about any other campers, our troop had a big campfire on Saturday night that went late into the night. Eventually, our campfire started to die out, prompting us to put it out and head to our prospective tents and hit the hay. Oddly, for me, I was unable to sleep that night. I usually slept well on campouts, especially when I had the pleasure of using a tent alone like I did at this occasion, so I sat there in complete silence listening to the various sounds around my tent. Eventually, I found myself dozing off, until I heard something walking nearby our campsite. There was a very apparent rustling of grass that began to get closer and closer to the blob of tents that our boys were sleeping in. After a solid minute of movement, the sound stopped right in front of a tent that was about 7 or so feet from mine. I then heard the rustling start up again and head off in the direction of the forest. I was paralyzed with fear. What could have made that sound? I thought about it solid for a few minutes and eventually decided it must have been an adult checking on us. Before I went to sleep, I looked out the little tent mesh window on the side of my tent and did not see anything out of the ordinary in our campsite, but I did not record for how long as I eventually fell asleep. I woke up later that night to the same sound of rustling, yet this time it was close to our tent circle, as it was the first time I heard it. While I didn't think much of this, I silently listened to the sound to see where it headed. It once again went to the same area it did the first time. Being curious, I peered through the tent window to see what was making the noise. My face turned white and I could not move. My mind was trying to register what was going on. I saw a large black figure standing before the tent in the darkness, and it was clear it was not a scout, as the figure had no flashlight on and was far too large to be any boy in our troop. Suddenly, the figure inched their hand to the tent door and began to slowly unzip it. After what felt like several minutes, the figure seemed to poke their head into the tent. Immediately after, a deafening screech came from the tent. I heard other tents being unzipped and saw lights being flashed at the one tent, as well as a figure starting to run away from the tent. Within seconds, the figure was running out of view into the line of trees. A few adults at the adult camp came to see the commotion. The boys who were in the tent told them what they had experienced, and several boys mentioned that they had heard the sound of rustling in the grass around our tents throughout the night. Unfortunately, none of the boys were able to get a clear view of the person, except that the figure looked like a man and he wore dark clothing. Disturbed, the adults had us be moved to the campsite where they were staying at, and 2 adults volunteered to stay awake the rest of the night in case the creeps returned. The next morning, we quickly packed up our stuff and left as fast as possible. We warned the ranger in charge, who called the local sheriff. From what I know, the person was never caught, and our troop never camped there again. It was easily one of my most frightening experiences, and something I would always remember when I went camping during my time as a Boy Scout. A guy tried to kidnap me and tries to steal my husband's truck at the same time. This happened earlier this week, and it still freaks me out. I work at a hotel in town and was driving my husband's truck into work as he was taking mine to the shop to get serviced. He has a very large truck, and I only drive it when I absolutely have to. When I pulled into the side parking lot, I noticed the entire lot is covered in snow, and no one can see the lines for the spots. So I begin to look like a moron and try to park in what I hope was a spot, backing up and moving forward several times. When I finally park, I get out of the truck and grab my backpack when I hear someone yelling from the sidewalk from behind the parking lot. "Hey, you need to learn how to fucking park." I'm embarrassed, but just close the truck, lock it, and begin walking to the front of the building. The hotel has a side entrance for employees, but it takes a code, and I have a shitty memory, so I just walk to the front and go through the main entrance. I hear the guy yelling again. "Did you hear me, bitch?" I walk faster and take a peek behind me. The guy is following me. I keep walking, but call back. "Please leave me alone. I need to go to work." Before I can reach the corner of the building and make my way to the entrance, the guy grabs my arm and spins me around. I will never forget what this guy looked like for as long as I live. He wore dark clothes with a torn-up winter coat. His eyes were bloodshot, and he smelled like a combination of cigarettes and whiskey. I guessed he must have been drunk, but he didn't slur at all when speaking. "You're coming with me." The guy began dragging me back to the truck, and I tried to pull my arm away from him. "Let go of me." "Give me the keys, we're taking a drive." I began to yell for help, and his grip on my arm got tighter. I'm a 26-year-old woman, not skinny, but a lot smaller than this guy. He was dragging me easily, and the snow on the ground just made my feet slide along on the ground. "Someone help, please." No one was near us, and I keep fighting to get away from this guy. I prayed that there would be guests that could possibly hear me. But it was our slow season, so most likely there was no one in the rooms on that side of the building. The guy turns back to glare at me. "Shut the F up and give me the keys." Now I was carrying my backpack on one shoulder as it was big and bulky from my uniform and shoes. I quickly slipped the strap down my arm, grabbed it, and swung it right into his face. A guy let me go, and I just ran for my life to the front doors. I heard the guy screaming, but ignored him. I was too scared to look back at him. I ran inside all the way to the employee locker rooms. When I finally calmed down enough, I went to the front desk to talk to security. Sadly, there were no cameras on that side of the building, so nothing was recorded. They called the cops, and I made a report. The cops informed the general manager of the hotel that they seriously needed to consider security cameras on that side of the building, as drunks and druggies were known to be in this area. There was a bar just a couple streets down. They got the description of the guy and said they would keep an eye out for him. The manager apologized like crazy about the incident, but I told him it wasn't his fault. He's a really good guy. I did ask for the security guard to follow me out so I could check on the truck. Thankfully, it was fine. The security guard promised to make more rounds outside, especially that early in the morning. Alright, that wraps up the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. Also, leave a comment below with your thoughts on the video. I basically read every comment, and if it's good enough, I'll respond to it, so make sure to leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for watching. It means a lot. Until next time, see ya.